I'm lucky enough to be part of the Peanut Gallery here and the president of the Clackamas County Business Alliance. We're really excited and pleased to have our commissioners here today to talk about all the exciting things that happened last year and all the positive things that are going to be happening this year. We appreciate you all being here, and thank you for joining us. We really like to be able to bring these informative forums to you, and hope you're all well and getting in line for your vaccines. And with that, I'll turn it over to Nellie and our wonderful county commission.
Well, I don't have much to add on top of that, Nina, but thank you all so much for joining us today. We're really fortunate to have the commissioners with us, and we're grateful for all the hard work they've been doing over this insane last year that we've had. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass the microphone to the commissioners. I don't know, Chair Smith, if you want to kick us off.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Nellie, and everybody for showing up and listening for us. On behalf of the county commissioners, I want to thank the CCBA for producing and hosting this event. These types of forums are really good to be able to talk to folks and listen to what they have to say, and for you to ask us questions. We know that our local businesses have been hit hard. Many had to close or have seen a reduction in income and other serious challenges. We want to hear from you, our business community, about your personal experiences in navigating through 3 emergencies in 11 months, and we are still in the recovery phase of all 3 of those. Some of the questions we'd like to ponder as a board is, what has Clackamas County done to support businesses that has been helpful or maybe not helpful? What more can the county do as restrictions are lifted? What should county commissioners know as we plan for the next round of federal support? And did any of these attendees take advantage of the county's support programs? What worked and what didn't? In closing, I'd like to state that my fellow commissioners and I believe that supporting our local economy is absolutely critical and on the foremost of our conversations and our minds. That's why we have a county division dedicated to economic development, which helps businesses and industries throughout Clackamas County. And the last round of the American Recovery Act plan, they call it ARAP, is that right? $81 million in payments will be made directly to Clackamas County. Yesterday we had a briefing from Nancy Bush, our Emergency Management Director, and we think that's going to be in the form of 2 payments. The first payment could arrive of $41 million as early as May 11th. With that in mind, we're going through, and we have a county task force assembled of department heads and people who are reaching out into community, deciding how best to allocate that money. Now, as you know, in the last go around of the CARES Act money, Clackamas County was discriminated against because our population was below $500,000, and the bulk of that went to Multnomah County and Washington County. Clackamas County got $17 million. Our allocation should have been $72 million, which then we could have made assistance to businesses to help them keep the doors open, make payroll, and on and on and on. And as I drive through the county, I see businesses that are closed, and I'm not sure if any of those are going to open back up. So with that in mind, I think commissioners have a list and priorities, not so much spending, but a broad scope. For instance, this new money that's coming in, 41 million, we want to target businesses that didn't have it. And we also don't want to overlap another program that's coming in from the state. Because right now we have, believe it or not, there's a lot of money that's going to be being thrown at us. And so that's why we set up our little task force at the county to help monitor that, to make it as broad-based and fair as possible, so a lot of people can partake in that. $81 million is a lot of money. I mean, and I've never seen it in all the years that I've been involved in government and outside of government. I've really never seen anything like what this could bring to us. I mentioned some of our nonprofits who deliver services to people in the county are very important. They were missed out in the last go around. So let's take a look at the nonprofits. Let's see, some of them have really been able to maintain their current income levels, but I know some nonprofits are just about ready to close their doors. So it's been a real challenge. And that's what we want to hear from you folks. And with that in mind, I'm going to let, I think Commissioner Schrader is up next in the queue, and then I see Commissioner Scholl can make comments. And then we would just like to field some questions from you folks.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Smith, for allowing me to be up in the queue. I really want to start out by saying that, you know, for all the time I've been here, what we have dealt with in since last March has essentially been unprecedented. If you can imagine your county basically responding to and then mitigating for 3 major emergencies. Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic, believe it or not, if you recall, the first case was an individual in Lake Oswego who lived in one of the schools that lived in Washington County. And from there, it pretty much snowballed into what we now know has been a significant global pandemic. Well, then this summer we had significant wildfires, and we had over 200,000 acres, well, close to 200,000 acres, really pretty much be decimated by those fires. That's about 15% of the county, if you can believe that, of our forestry materials. And I'm looking at my paperwork to make sure I get the numbers correct here. We did not, thank goodness, lose any lives. We did have a lot of structural loss and people who we had to really move out of the way. Within 48 hours of the wildfires starting, about nearly the entire southern half of the county was asked to evacuate. And in 72 hours, that evacuation line was on the border of the cities of Wilsonville, Oregon City, and Happy Valley, very close, a little too close for comfort, I would say. And the city of Estacada and areas surrounding the communities of Canby and Molalla were told to evacuate. So at the peak, not only, again, are we still dealing with a pandemic, but with a wildfire peak, over 52,000 people were told to evacuate, and in level 3 evacuation zones. That's amazing. And that does not include, remember, we're an urban, rural, suburban frontier county. That doesn't include the livestock. And we are having some conversations with Extension. Actually, we hope maybe partnering with them a little more closely in the future, in particular helping with the livestock movement and management should we face something like this again, hopefully in the far future, not the far future. And as I said, in the end, we were lucky. We didn't lose lives in this, but we basically had 62 homes burned, 200 other structures such as barns, garages, outbuildings, and even a church. And we are still rebuilding from this fire. Ironically, one of the lessons learned, and I hate to kind of do the, you know, who's on the level of the government here, but basically our county was well prepared for debris cleanup, but the state did pick up the debris cleanup following the 2020 wildfires, but their approach, quite frankly, has undermined our preparedness and bogged us down and given us limited choices on how to participate. So we as a county want to work with the Oregon State Legislature on legislation that would support or incentivize counties to improve their preparedness for local cleanup by having debris plans that reflect FEMA guidelines, study how to improve the Office of Emergency Management's ability to lead cleanup response and recovery efforts at the state level, and also direct the DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, to create advanced cleanup standards for residential and commercial properties that promotes equity, public health at a reasonable cost that gives residents choices on how to do the cleanup. So that was the story with that. As far as I know, I believe we are pursuing legislation. I don't know the particulars of that off the top of my head, but I'm just going to give kudos not only to our previous commission who was on board, but our current commission that is still dealing with the outcomes of these emergencies. And I really want to thank our emergency management staff who have been on call, on board, 24/7 for over a year, making sure the residents of this county are safe and that they are healthy and that we will recover from any emergency that faces us. So thank you, Commissioner. Here we go. All right.
Commissioner Scholl, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, Chair Smith. Good morning, everyone. What I like to mention is that the last year has been difficult, to say the least, and heartbreaking for many businesses in the county. Right now, we are in the moderate risk level for COVID, but we're just barely under, going at 98.7 cases per 100,000. We're close to the potential for going back to the high risk category. I don't want to see this happen. I encourage everyone to continue to be safe out there, do what you can to continue to fight this COVID issue. But on the other hand, I want to resist any effort from Salem to put us back into a higher risk category. Businesses are now opening up at the moderate risk level, and I don't want to see us go back to a higher risk level. It's going to be very costly for our businesses. And the other thing too is, as we come out of this period of difficulty over the last 12 months, I want us to look at, again, what it takes to make Clackamas County an attractive county for business. We need to continue to look at these bills that are going to Salem that potentially will result in higher taxation and making it more difficult for businesses to make a profit here. So I encourage the folks from the CCBA to keep in contact with those of us here at the Board of Commissioners office with ideas on how we can continue to fight higher taxes, higher levels of restrictions on business. So stay in touch with us and don't hesitate to pick up that phone and call. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. Commissioner Fisher, would you like to offer some comments?
Thank you, Chair Smith. I am late to the meeting. I apologize. I was participating in a settlement conference. And was there a question? Or is this
we're just giving some opening comments on what you think about particularly businesses in light of our 3 emergencies. And you don't have to comment if you don't want to, but you can put your hand up at any time and I'll call on you.
Well, my one comment that I would like to make is we do have an opportunity as we reflect on the 3 emergencies that we've gone through as to what has worked, and we want to make sure we incorporate that even stronger within our systems, and what have we learned so that we can make improvements going forward. Lots of opportunity. When it comes to our businesses, we really need to hear from you as to how we need to recover. And if we could, there's been so much pain and so much hurt out there. It just is awful when you see businesses close. But if we can get our input for how we can best recover, and if we can take what we've learned and recover stronger in whichever ways are feasible, let's do it. And it is all about communication and working with each other. So
thank you.
Thank you.
And Nellie, I took over your forum. I'm sorry for that. So it's yours now. It's habit. Forgive me, it's just a habit.
No, more than grateful. I'd rather you just take over the whole thing, so please do. Thank you. With that, it looks like we're opening everything up. Please use the chat feature or the Q&A feature to ask some questions. We'd love to, obviously, we're so very grateful to have the county commissioners here and for everyone.
Well, that's good. You know, I'm going to cheat here from my notes. COVID support to businesses, county has distributed over $5 million in grants, and they were 114 childcare providers, of which 36 were brick and mortar, 72 home-based, and 6 campfire programs at schools. A majority of the applications, 800, were from adult care, automotive, construction, entertainment and recreation, food services, weddings and events, lodging, manufacturing, medical and healthcare services, personal services like nail shop, barber, dry cleaners, retail and small storefronts. We've also distributed scholarships to Clackamas Community College in the amount of $100,000. That was some of the COVID relief money. We were also in partnership with 6 chambers of commerce in Clackamas County to help set up business resource centers to provide one-stop shop for recovery assistance to try to streamline that and get the word out. And what that included was individualized answers to business questions, assistance with connecting to financial resources, helping with navigating technical resources, education, referrals to organization and resources, and access to interpreters and translation services. And that's just some of the stuff that we've been able to do. But if any of your members have participated in any of this, maybe they can give us the insight how well it worked or maybe how it didn't work so we can move forward on the next round. Go ahead, Nellie.
No, not at all. I'm still, okay, we do have, it's from Commissioner Schrader as well. She said, how did the business recovery centers work for everyone? Are there things we could be doing better? Along the same lines that Chair Smith said. Would anyone like to comment on that? Everyone seems to be quiet this afternoon. It's a beautiful sunny day. I think we're all distracted by the sunshine.
Well, you know what? If there's dead space, the commissioners are going to start talking, and you probably don't want that. Right?
It's not a terrible thing.
Sonia's going, She probably has a lot to say. I have a lot of notes I can refer to if you'd like.
I mean,
you want to hear about the ice storm?
Oh, gosh. We can't, 2021 can't even do a snowstorm properly, right?
Oh, I know it. I know. Well, here's some stats on the ice storm. At one point, 240,000 customers were without power. And on that Saturday, I got a call at my home on my personal cell because the county cell phone wasn't working. In that first 24 hours, the county communications systems were a little bit garbled. So Gary Schmidt called Tootie. He says, we need to declare an emergency for Clackamas County. And of course, I'd been here, 5 weeks? And I get to declare an emergency. And I says, oh boy, okay, let's do that. I'm ready. And so they would send it to me over my phone. So I'm reading this really long structure over my phone. Can you see my phone? You know what a cell phone looks like. And I had to drive down to the other end of my farm to get reception. So I'm in the pickup and ice is coming down. The wind chills are going. So I'm reading, trying to make sure that I understand everything right. And at the same time, over there to the side, trees are coming down like this. And trees are coming down everywhere on the farm. I'm going, wow. I'll never ever forget that moment. And so then I signed it. I says, yes, I agree to blah, blah, blah. And I sent it back. And Gary says, where is it? Where is it? He was like, I need it. He says, I sent it back 5 minutes ago. Well, they finally got it. And we went on. The rest is history. And what I think had surprised me and most of our people is the length of time that many Clackamas County residents were without power. That was very, very hard, very hard. Some people were over 2 weeks. A week had passed. We realized tens of thousands of residents without power. And that's when we put our heads together and thought maybe we should call in the National Guard to do wellness checks. And the internal briefings on that, we implemented our special ops committee. And there was 9 people on a panel like this. And here's me, and I'm talking to them, and they're all waiting for me to say something. Staff made a recommendation, and they thought, well, they could handle it themselves. I previously had called our Sheriff Brandenburg. I say, look, we need SARS. We need to start doing wellness checks on people in Clackamas County because I'm very concerned. We already had 4 people die from carbon monoxide poisoning because they were heating their homes improperly with devices not suited for homes. More had been taken to the hospital. And I was saying, okay, can we somehow identify people who need it the most? Long story, we called in the National Guard. I got on the phone with the governor, Governor Brown, Tootie Smith. We need the National Guard desperately. This is why. And we need you to pay for it. And we need you to pay for it because I don't think people are aware. You just don't call the National Guard in because there's a cost to that. And I thought, well, you know, we already pay for it, don't we? Well, not really. So Governor Brown says, Tootie, this is the deal. If you need them, you need them. And I says, yes, I do. And I need you to pay for it. She says, let's worry about the money later. We'll see what we can do. So they came in on Sunday, and I don't know how many, I probably have it in my notes here, how many doors they pounded on to just get people. But the feedback that I got from our sheriff's department, that people were so overwhelmed that somebody knocked on their door and cared and said, how can I help you? Some people just cried. Some people just cried. And it really touched my heart because whereas government did not cause COVID or the fires or the ice storm, we will be judged by how we react into helping people. And I was willing to say, well, we're going to have to find money in the budget if we don't get it. Long story, the governor says, no, we will pay for you to do it. Initially, she said, as far as recovering monies from FEMA, she says, in order to have a state declaration that goes national to FEMA, Clackamas County, I think, needed $1.5 million in destruction to business, to government, not business, and $6.5 million statewide. And at that time, I had no idea. Well, 1.5 million to Clackamas County. So far, the number to Clackamas County has come in at 14 million. Not only did Clackamas County meet their threshold, Clackamas County met the threshold for the entire state. FEMA came out last week and this week, and they're going through the numbers, and some of those could be taken off. But let's say FEMA took out half of what our requests would be. We're still at 7 million to hopefully get more money. Since then, Commissioner Samus and I have been lobbying our United States senators and our Congress people and explaining Clackamas County's situation. And when we say that we have 3 declared emergencies in 11 months still going on, our county director said we are the only county in the United States right now under this type of stress, with the second being Marion County, our neighbors to the south. They are also in the same type of stress. In the entire United States, I don't know, Martha, how many counties are there in America? I have no idea. Thousands.
Over thousands. Over.
There's about 30, right around 3,400 counties.
Thank you. I knew somebody would know that number. I knew that. So,
and to be honest,
it has been a challenge. And, you know, as your chair, you know, I want to see things done like this, but I also know our staff has performed really, really heroically. They have gone out on weekends, provided batteries to oxygen equipment when people lost their homes to keep people on their oxygen machines. We have started up warming shelters in Westland. It's never had one before. We did some in Molalla. I mean, it was just all over the county that we did. We were able to really come together and do a lot of stuff. But we're learning, and I will say that we are not prepared. We are not prepared for more natural disasters or emergencies. And that is a priority for me personally, to understand how we go about doing that. And it was so personal to me that when I signed committee liaisons to our board members, and they get to pick those two, you know, I just don't assign it. I created a new committee called Emergency Management Coalition Groups, and all 5 commissioners want to serve on that. And the purpose of that is, Nellie, is that we reach out in all these communities of volunteers. It has to be volunteer. And we set up pods. And for instance, I talked to Jules Walters, the mayor of West Point, and she called up. She says, Tootie, we need a warming shelter out here. It's really bad. The next day, we had one out there. So to me, that is a structure that we can rely on next time. I would like to be able to supply that place, have the supplies sitting there in our cities, in our hubs around. And we have a lot of volunteers with expertise. And Martha and I know that when we toured South County after the wildfires, right, Martha?
Yep.
And we went out and we talked to a lot of the people who had stayed and fought the fires themselves. They had brought in equipment from the private sector. They had run the equipment. They had tankers donated by industry and businesses. They had their own shovels and picks. And I tell you what, Martha, you know, we survived listening to that, but it was not near as bad as having to survive a fire. And many of my dearest friends have lost their lifetimes, homes and businesses. I too was evacuated, but I got to come back home to my house after over 21 days. It just wasn't livable, but my house was standing. So the entire south one half of our county was evacuated. And that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. No loss of life because our sheriff's department evacuated. Our sheriff's department kept us safe. And I'm very thankful to them. So Nellie, any other, I see a
Yes,
question.
actually, and I want to just echo, thank you so very much for, you know, sending people to knock on individual doors. I mean, I know that particularly in an emergency like that, it's just to feel support is incredible. So we are so appreciative to you. And actually, Ruth Adkins from Kaiser Permanente said she doesn't have a question for you, but she just wants to let you know that she so appreciates the county staff and leadership for all the hard work during the past months of disasters. We're hopeful for better days ahead, for sure.
Well, no kidding, Ruth, I echo that.
Seriously, I think we all do.
Nellie, I have a question, and I wanted to see if maybe Commissioner Shull or Commissioner Fisher may weigh in on this, but we saw TVFNR this morning running a vaccination clinic at the Clackamas Community College, Wilsonville campus. And to Chair Smith's point, you know, having emergency volunteers and help. So I'm wondering if either one of my colleagues might want to comment on the community emergency response teams and what the firefighters said to us.
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty
I'll be
remarkable.
happy to make a comment on that. This morning, like Commissioner Schrader said, we were at Wilsonville observing the COVID vaccine administration there. And the firefighters told us of the tremendous support that they have received from the CERT teams, the community emergency response teams that have come into Wilsonville from various cities around. But we learned last summer during the fires that there's a huge need for coordinating our communities and our rural CPOs to respond to these type of disasters we've had. I was very, very impressed this morning in talking to some of the CERT volunteers, and we walked out of there this morning with some recommendations from the firefighters on how we might better take care of and support our CERT teams. And Chair Smith, Commissioner Schrader and I were going to talk to you about that, bring it up tomorrow. Anyway, the communities out there need to be looking at taking a new look at CERT teams, CERT training, in preparation for the next whatever happens in the way of disaster. I was very impressed with the CERT teams this morning in Wilsonville. Thank you.
I see a comment from Liz Hartman that says, thank you for the forum today. We are still hearing from businesses that could use help with rent, leases, and utilities. This is a great question. Chambers are waiting to hear whether the business recovery centers can continue with funding from Clackamas County. We are hearing from businesses that some would use grants on ventilation, marketing, and improvements to continue to keeping employees and customers safe. This is from Liz Hartman at Lake Oswego Chamber. I tell you what, that is an excellent recommendation, Liz. I think we need to copy and paste that and make sure our staff has that. We will forward that on. I cannot give you a direct answer as to positivity, but I think that's all of our hope here that we can do that. Is any other commissioner want to make a comment on that? Go ahead.
Well, I'm just hopeful that close to 82 million that we're getting will enable us to continue these kinds of programs.
That's right.
And I am going to give a shout out to the National Association of Counties for those dollars, because they realized that we are the boots on the ground. And this is why it's important for us. I'm just letting business people know why we should remain really connected to the National Association. As Commissioner Schultz says, it's over 3,000 counties. And because we have had the 3 major emergencies, I suspect they're going to ask us to do some kind of a presentation for all the counties about what it was like to deal with 3 major emergencies in 1 year, so we can help inform national best practices. But it was their lobbying at the national level that made it clear that the counties really deserve direct allocations of these new dollars, that it didn't have to be a pass-through from the state, that local municipalities and counties across this nation needed the direct allocations because they're the ones, when you really think about it, we're the boots on the ground. And we work very closely with our municipalities, but a lot of the work that we do in public health, emergency management, we're kind of it in many ways. So I want to thank the National Association and encourage all of my colleagues to stay involved, because those folks made sure that Clackamas County is going to get that allocation of $81 million. So just, it's a little bit of my soapbox.
Well, Martha, you've always served on NACO, and I've always appreciated the extra time and effort that you've taken to attend those meetings in DC. Now we're virtual. But you know that I attended one NACO conference, and it was hard. You know,
Yeah.
it's not fun and games. It's hard. There's a tremendous amount of information dumped on you in a very short amount of time, and with all the duties that a county commission has, especially in Clackamas County, it's a lot to do. And thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I do have a question with regard to forest management. We've kind of covered the ice storm. Maybe we can move on to the fires that we've had. But what forest management products is the county looking at to create more or better wildlife interfaces for fire protection?
Judy, do you want me to say that? We actually have the best forest management plan of most of the counties. We actually exceed state guidelines. So a lot of what we do on our own matrix lands is not only meeting state guidelines, but exceeding state guidelines when it comes to riparian zones, monitoring water temperature. We've had a long history of what I call harvest that is ecologically sound, that has respected both the opportunity to harvest for the dollars that essentially support our parks in this county, our county parks, and also to really maintain a pretty good environmental record on all of that. I'm not the one serving, I think, on some of the new county forestry initiatives. So I was hopeful maybe Commissioner Scholl and Commissioner Smith might elaborate on that a little bit. But as a local timber harvest, we're pretty darn good. And not only that, we work very closely with our small woodlot owners, because in our county we have what's the name of the farm that we have?
Oregon Small Woodlands Association.
Oregon Small Woodlands, but then we also have Hopkins Forest, okay? And Hopkins is kind of a research base for forestry practices as well as extension. And you have to understand that we also have the North Willamette Valley Experiment Station, which is anchored outside of Wilsonville, which really gives us the direct connection not only to forestry management, but to berries, to pollination ecology, research and horticulture. We're kind of the full meal deal when it comes to managing resources, actually. But I know
I'd like to follow up with an answer to that if I could. The forestry component is very complicated. You know, you could say back in 1987, that's really how I got my start in politics, when I became a serious activist and learning about the effects of government on our forest lands. Just consider for a moment, Clackamas County has 1.2 million acres. 54% of that is federally owned timberland. So we're talking, what, 650,000 acres of federally forest land. You add an additional, what, 20% state forest lands. We cannot physically manage those forest lands the way that many of us think they should be. Now, I sit on the county trust lands, statewide organization out of Associated Oregon Counties. I also sit on the ONC County lands, Oregon, California lands, of which our board soon will be having a presentation on the devastation that the forest fires, for instance, caused in Jackson County. That county was almost totally wiped out. And when you consider that Clackamas County lost 200,000 acres almost to the wildfires, many of that was private forest lands that are currently being logged, taken to our 2 mills in Clackamas County. It's quite remarkable. However, the federal forest timber that was burned, there's no law saying they have to do anything. In fact, I would submit that those federal forests that were burned will always be laying burnt and fuel for more fires in the future. I don't have a whole lot of hope for our state forest lands either, in that the Oregon Department of Forestry and the Forestry Board has come under really attack in the last year or two on their forestry management. They have been upside down in their ability to even fight forest fires from, I believe, the Oregon legislature's allocations. You can blame that on one, or you can blame on their fiscal management on the other. Whatever the cause is, this state is not prepared to fight forest fires. And that is the problem. So when I say that Martha and I saw what our volunteers did in South County to save homes and more forests, I think, folks, that's where the future is. We're going to have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, because I've been at this issue since 1987, and it has not improved in anything. It has deteriorated, and I believe because of government inaction. And you can blame both the Republican Party and the Democrat Party at the national level, because they don't understand West Coast Oregon priorities. They don't understand how our forests are sustainable, that we need them, and more importantly, that we use them for many, many components. And so that's where the rub is. And I don't see much hope in that. We're going to do the best we can. Martha really laid it out clearly on what our responsibility is, but we're trying. And if anybody out there has some forestry advice for me and Martha and the rest of us, hey, we're all ears. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just want to chime in just one little piece to add on to everything, a little bit different than the question, but I think it's pretty exciting. The board, as one of its strategic initiatives, is developing a climate action plan and is going to be engaging very heavily with our communities in Clackamas County all across the board for input. And this plan is going to be a collaborative process, so stay tuned. There will be opportunities to engage on that. It's important. Our climate is changing. Gosh, if last year wasn't an evidence of that with ice storms and wildfires, and it's we have a lot. We talk about being prepared and being resilient. We have a lot of work to do, and taking a look at climate is one of those ways.
Thank you.
So you kind of threw me a softball there, Commissioner, because I can't talk about climate change and environmental issues unless I promote the Oregon Bee Atlas. Okay. I was an entomologist back in the day, and I'm relearning everything I know, and I might bore everybody now with my new knowledge when I talk about it. But one of the reasons I did that is because, no bees, no food. And we're not just talking honeybees, we're talking wild bees. We're talking solitary bees. We're talking multiple families of bees and genera of bees and species of bees. So the Oregon State University, through extension, trains people to go out in the wild. And so I'm going to be looking forward, and I'm doing this on my own dime. So no Clackamas County dollars, okay? Just so everybody know, this is all Martha. I'd like to see it as a key part of some of the things that we'd like to educate people on in our area. And also, so that's one piece of it. The other piece is I would like to add with Commissioner Fisher is that we have been very committed to energy efficiency in our buildings. And all of our so far, any buildings that we have are LEED certified and new buildings, and that we are committed to energy efficiency and reducing our carbon footprint based on all the techniques, all the policies, all the things that we can do to reduce our footprint, including recycling. So we've done a good job internally, and I think we're going to do a great job externally with all the folks in Clackamas County. And I really am going to tout extension. They should be a big part of this. So,
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. We're running out of questions. I know that we've had a lot of struggle over the past years, or the past year, I should say, but you know, hopefully we can see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel right now. Do we have any more questions? I've got one more. As Liz Hartman mentioned, we are constantly hearing the need for financial rent/lease and utility help. Our hope would be to see some of that $81 million bookmarked toward continuing to build equitable small business support and growth throughout offering continued business resources, financial, technical, and educational, by partnering with Clackamas County's BRCs, SBDC, MESO, and our local companies to answer this great need. Could that be put in as a consideration when the money comes in, or do you have other thoughts on focused financial support for our small business community? Thank you so much.
Of course, it can be made part of that, and that's one of the questions that we want to hear from you. Where do you think the money should go? Yes, just submit that. If all these ideas, Liz, and this one, you know, send an email to bcc@clackamas.us. I'll say that again, bcc@clackamas.us is the general email for the Board of County Commissioners. We'll see that, and you know what, we'll take that paper, literally take that paper, and make sure it gets to our committee when considering such things. I bet you they probably already are, but we want to make sure that we don't leave anything out when we continue on that.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on that. There's also our businesses, I can't talk. Business and Community Services is doing a survey, and I think I first heard about this from you, Liz, that was happening. You were actually informing me on that. So we are going to be, this is all part of our journey of hearing from our businesses and our community as to how we should use that direct allocation. I'm really interested, and maybe folks have some input here or some data to send us to, but it just breaks my heart every time I see a business that is closed. And I would be really interested to know what is the main driving factor, if there is one. I know that there's a lot of diversity within our businesses, but I would really like to hear from folks as to the reasons why, if they were not able to maintain through, so that we can best target our support towards maintaining and enriching our current businesses.
Yeah.
Nellie, I'd like to say something akin to what Commissioner Fisher said, and that is for the businesses that are members of the CCBA. You know what? I would really like to know, as we come out of this last year and hopefully into a better business environment in 2021, what are like the top 3 things in Clackamas County that businesses see as restrictions from them expanding their operations in Clackamas County? In other words, what are 3 things that the Board of Commissioners can look at to fight, eliminate, or modify that would result in reducing whatever those things might be that cause businesses to refrain or hold back from expansion in the county? Thank you.
Thanks. We do have a question about what your feelings, Clackamas County's feelings are on tolling. I know that's kind of a hot topic issue right now.
Well, this county government has issued 2 resolutions against tolls. However, we can fight that all day long, and I am not a supporter of tolls, and don't ever think I am. I think most of our board members have had briefings from our transportation department on what the Oregon legislature is doing and has done, the Oregon Transportation Commission and Oregon Department of Transportation. And basically, the conclusion of my briefing was, gee, staff, Clackamas County's taken a really hard position on tolling. It looks like to me that horse has already left the barn. Now what are we going to do? For consideration, I have offered to my board a vision document on tolling to be looked at through an equity lens. And we have our priorities, we have our society, we have our economic considerations. But as our population is increased, we find more and more transportation snafus. Oregon has not built a new freeway system or highway in over 30 years, and our population during that time has practically doubled. I'm not saying that I support tolling, but there's an old saying that one of my former colleagues used. If you're not at the table, you're going to be on the menu. So I would rather be at the table and try to influence the most equitable, reasonable aspect to tolling. And let's face it, there's people in Clackamas County that cannot afford any additional burdens of a toll on their household budgets whatsoever. If you were to put this to a vote of citizens, I bet it would come crashing down in failure. But the Oregon legislature has decided through, is it House Bill 2017? Am I saying that right? They put tolling, they implemented, the get-go for tolling years ago. And so I would like to hear from anybody out there who is more knowledgeable to me on this. This board is going to be considering this, and we're having a very large transportation policy session. It's going to be on a Wednesday. It could be 2 hours long. And I will just keep, it's going to be in April. It's going to be on one of the 3 Wednesdays in April, and I don't remember exactly what day that is, but it's coming. And so maybe some of you folks out there could listen to it. Transportation is complicated. It can sometimes be really dry and boring, but nevertheless, we don't like sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic on I-205 either. I will say that we have lobbied hard for the expansion of I-205 at Stafford from 2 lanes to 3 lanes. It looks like through the big infrastructure bill that the president has announced and Congress probably will ratify, that we could get some money for that expansion and for the retrofitting and rebuilding of Abernathy Bridge. The reason for that is I-205 project is the only shovel-ready job in Oregon, and they want shovel-ready to go now projects to do. We feel fortunate in that. We have the land. The land was, appropriated for years ago, and it will help. It will help, I think, our local economy. In that, our delivery trucks won't be sit. Our delivery systems will be sooner. Pollution will go down if we're not sitting bumper to bumper with the emissions coming out the back of our cars. So I don't like tolling, but we better be proactive in how it's going to look like. And I'm sorry to have to say that to any person that I may have insulted on this phone call. But Martha, you have your hand up?
No, I don't. No, I think that, I just must say I agree with the equity lens. I think it's a burden on people.
I do. It is a burden on people. It's a huge economic burden. And I don't know how we're going to get around it, but I tell you, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that our residents and our businesses are treated fairly, and that the burden isn't put on I-205 through Clackamas County, and that others are left to say, oh, one of those situations.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback what Chair Smith said. If you just look at where the cars can travel and you look at Clackamas County, we don't have a lot of options when you're looking at going south. It's like going through 205 is really one of the few ways through there, and we don't have transit options. We just had a policy session yesterday on putting together a plan for if funding for transit becomes available. So we're ready to apply for that funding, and it is so very clear we do not have options. People talk about wanting to get out of their cars and be using other forms that we don't have that capacity within Clackamas County. So we cannot, when we live in a place where people really are required to use their automobiles, we cannot unfairly burden them with the extra cost of the tolling. So my thought is okay, I will totally support tolling as long as every Clackamas County resident is exempt. So I believe that's my official position.
There you go, Commissioner Fisher. You beat up to it.
Oh, there you go. Thumbs up.
Oh, that's good. Well, we're coming up on 1 o'clock. We've got 3 minutes. I don't know if we want to do some closing statements, but I so appreciate you all being here. Thank you.
Closing statements. Any commissioner want to add anything that hasn't been discussed?
Just keep reaching out, keep talking to us. We need you. Great partnership, and thank you.
Yes, and Nellie and businesses of CCBA, without strong businesses in this county, we cannot have a strong county. So I support whatever it takes to make Clackamas County a place where businesses want to be and want to thrive and are able to thrive. So stay in touch. Let us know what's on your mind so that we can take action and make it this county an even better place. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Commissioner.
I will just sum up. I didn't get a say regarding Portland General Electric, and their CEO, Maria Pope, and I will be meeting monthly. During this disaster, I went literally at them really hard because I consider a lot of the prolonged power outages is to be the right-of-way has not been cleared of trees, danger trees and limbs. And by the way, this is a job that I used to have at the Bonneville Power Administration. I was a legal rights reviewer, and it's a topic that I'm very, very knowledgeable about. And as I drive through the county, I see trees all the time hanging over our power lines, and we somehow have a love affair with trees. Well, what that taught us, if anything, you want your trees or do you want your power? And as more and more people are working from home, didn't have Zoom available, and even our cell phones went out, I think we need to start managing our right-of-ways better, planting trees in different places, be more aggressive on cutting back vegetation. And also, I have been harping on them for power pole replacement, as some of our power poles, who come from trees, by the way, they go down and cut these really tall trees to certain specifications. Some of those power poles are 50 and 70 years old. And when they broke like toothpicks under the weight of ice, I'm saying to myself, that shouldn't have happened. And I was right. So as I drive through the county, I see these big PGE trucks with booms replacing power poles. I want to thank PGE and Maria Pope for listening and willing to engage in conversations with our county over the next year on how to manage through this. And they are very interested in helping us manage through our future disasters, not if, but when they will happen. And we're going to try to put together a plan for that, just to be more resilient and more prepared as we go forward. And Nellie, thank you kindly for allowing us to spend lunch with you folks.
So appreciate it. You're all so wonderful. Thank you for all your hard work. And just hang in there. Appreciate everything you do.
You betcha.
Before everyone takes off, I hope everyone can join us on April 6th for a conversation with Metro President Lynn Peterson. It's also at noon, so stay tuned, but that should be a good conversation on transportation. So
Thank you.
everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.